Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and today I'd like to talk to you about the versatility of wanders and sort of an update on the elemental wander that I started on the 2-week flashback event that recently just started a few days ago. I've primarily been playing this, not entirely self-found, but it's pretty crappy gear is what I mean to say, and I've tried to get by making and finding my own stuff, and the character's okay. It's not too bad. We've reached something like 78 to 80 maps, level 78 to 80 maps, and I'm level 89. It is completely an elemental wonder, and it is a ranger deadeye. Now, it is versatile, and I do mean wanders in general are versatile, because this is essentially the exact same passive tree as that physical and chaos wander that I made about a week ago to show to you guys. The only real difference is the way you gear and set up the character. And by that I mean gem links, damage types on wand, and even the gear itself where I'm wearing a rat's nest over a crown of eyes, just because it's all much cheaper to do it this way. So this is essentially the starting wander package that I would recommend, followed closely by Inquisitor Elemental Inquisitor, and then by the physical chaos sort of Deadeye version would be my recommendations in terms of wanding tiers. But this one gets you started. It gets you up to maps of a certain level, let's say just about red maps, and you won't really feel too bad by doing any of it. So I'll go over what the gear is for this character, and its shortcomings, and potentially what you may do with it in the future, right after this boss kill. Slam. Okay. So I'm here on the 2-week Flashback League, Parandus Flashback League on Softcore. Current level is 89 and the character is struggling like it's my job. I named it that specifically because I was going to be leveling as a wander, and that is notoriously pretty goddamn bad. So I did do a fair amount of struggling. I swapped into wander at around level 35. Up until then I leveled as lightning arrow with a Roth's Reach, or basically whatever else you can find. And you do that just by starting out and grabbing these progenotes and going straight to the duelist area and grabbing those progenotes. So you get your general damage as soon as possible, and then start going around up here and making your way towards crits, so that once you're starting to swap to wander, you're close to these nodes already. So as I mentioned, this is essentially the same as the Deadeye physical and Chaos Wander that I built. The tree, the only real difference is I took Leech because I need it since I don't have any Fizz Leech, and I also ended up taking Forces of Nature. I haven't been emphasizing too much on jewels at the moment because jewels are going to be hard to actually get good ones of. I am running one Mantra of Flames because it's good when running with a buff person, and I've been running with a aura setup buffer. Sometimes, not all the time. Otherwise, the passive tree is essentially identical because our damage is very general. As you can see, it's just damage from wands here. You just got your crit multis, your crit multi, your crit, bit of projectile damage. This is just projectile damage and projectile damage. So essentially that's scaling everything always. That's going to scale my chaos, my fizz, my elemental. But in this particular wand I've chosen to go elemental, and that's what I'm trying to scale. Likewise, all of these will scale all of your damages. So elemental is just the most budget version of the build, but it is probably the worst version of the build, at least in this iteration. So what I'm running though is Herald of Ice and Wrath. And that brings me up in town to something like 28k tooltip now. When I'm out in the wild with my frenzies and power charges up and blood rage, I've got about 45k now. And that is on a 5-link with this current gear that I'll show you. This is a extremely basic wand that I managed to craft. When you're crafting a shitty elemental wand, all you're looking for is tier 1 elemental damage of some sort, preferably cold, so that your Herald of Ice shatters better. And then try and craft some crit, maybe get a base crit, get some attack speed. As long as you got 2 props on there, it's good. So, elemental and some crit, elemental and attack speed, 2 early rolls, and then you can craft some crit. You know what I'm talking about. It's pretty cheap, it's pretty easy. So your wand is really easy to start with because a lot of your damage is going to come from your Wrath, your Herald of Ice, and your added lightning or added cold gem as I'm using right now. Next I got a Rat's Nest. That cost me 1 exalt early on in the league. They're cheaper nowadays. A self-found amulet with just some accuracy, bit of fizz damage. There's nothing too special going on there. Ideally you want a lot of crit multi and some weapon early damage or some flat elemental damage. My rings are absolutely garbage right now. Well, this one's pretty garbage. Just some resist and life. This one has wed, a little bit of lightning damage. That's what you're looking for. Wed, lightning damage, cold damage, fire damage, some accuracy if you want, and a diamond base. And the last piece of damage I really get is from, let's say, yeah, my belt here has some wed, bit of life. This cost me like 10 chaos. And gloves, bit of attack speed, bit of elemental damage, and some accuracy. I'm using those because it's kind of hard to get life at this stage, as opposed to, say, face breakers, which would give me a very large damage increase, and I'd probably use eventually. And then I just got some crap boots with 7 life, but they give me max movement speed, and I'm capped on resist, thanks to all those items, so I'm fairly decent on resist, not too great for early weakness maps, that sort of thing. But I do have Valpact, and Vitality Void. So I have 2% Life Leech, some decent Mana Leech, and I'm Reflect Immune thanks to Valpact, and it helps me heal instantly quite a lot. As I mentioned in the previous video, for wanding I do have a 100% chance to pierce through these nodes and the Pierce Gem. And that does of course allow you to absolutely shit on single target, thanks to Frost Walls and the Pierce mechanic. You can see all those little explosions overlap onto a boss, so it does insane amounts of damage. And recently I have found that the most effective way of utilizing this single target damage is to attack linearly down the wall. So if you create a wall like this onto a boss, you then want to stand over here and attack that way. It seems to cause the most explosions, but you won't always be able to get into that position. My current links, I leveled on a 4 link all the way up to level 88, and that was Kinetic Blast, Weapon Early Damage, GMP, and Pierce. There we go. Those are my 4 most important links. Beyond that, for this character, I'm going Added Cold or Added Lightning. You can pick either one of them, and then the other one. So you throw in your Added Lightning beyond that. And that would mean you'll have something, with this kind of gear, if you have a 6 link, you'll be rolling something like 60-70k DPS buffed up, which isn't anything insane, but gear scales your damage a lot. So do jewels, so do a few extra passives, etc. So it's nothing insane, but it gets you started. Now where you start to run into problems, your problems will basically begin once you hit a red tier level of maps, unless your gear is still scaling fairly insanely, and when you're playing on a 2-week league or on a fresh league, it's going to be hard to get better and better gear. You're going to start to run into problems with red maps, because there's so many things that get in the way of your elemental damage progressing, so many map mods, that it just starts to fall off on damage and effectiveness. And I'm talking about Enfeeble. Elemental Equilibrium's a big one. Cold, fire, lightning resistance on those red maps goes up to 80, which is pretty insane. You know, all of those sorts of things just really slow down elemental damage quite badly. So what you end up needing to do to make an effective elemental wander or elemental build in general these days is become Inquisitor. So that's the next step up from this build, is what I'm talking about, and that is roughly a passive tree like this. I haven't played around with elemental wander Inquisitor yet. I've just done the Wind Ripper character, which was very effective in my experience. But this is roughly what a passive tree would look like for it. I'm not going to post this anywhere because I'm really not sure how well it would go, or if this is a good passive tree for it even. I'd have to actually play around with it and then perfect it as I go. But the general gist is you're going to be traveling a lot, meaning you gotta have somewhat comfortable gear to level with. And you'll probably be leveling as bows for most of that experience. And you're going to need things like static electricity, some decent leveling gear to actually make this not suck balls. So essentially, starting this league, I wanted to do Inquisitor Kinetic Blast, but I'm not that much of a masochist to go ahead and start off with this because the Deadeye character that I made, it, it it's a lot easier to level just because you get all these proj nodes early on, and the traveling isn't as extensive, and the uh, ascendancies are a lot more straightforward. You just get a flat damage upgrade there, you get good accuracy over here and some good area over here, and just in the end a bit more attack speed over there. So the ascendancies just straight up benefit you and they help you with leveling quite a lot. Whereas Inquisitor, you're gonna be pretty much screwed until about level 60 when you finally travel to some of the good nodes and when you finally get your good and game-changing ascendancy, which is this one, Inevitable Judgment. So, if I haven't mentioned before, and you don't know why Inquisitor is so overpowered for this type of stuff, it's because of Inevitable Judgment. Critical strikes ignore elemental resistances, meaning you will scale into high-end maps very comfortably with your elemental damage, because every time you crit, enemies will have no resistances, and you should be critting most of the time. And that means that some of the red map mods don't really mean anything to you, and a lot of bosses that are very heavy on resistances just fall over a lot easier than they would otherwise. So you'd grab those, and beyond that, you'd probably take this as well, if you're going to play an Inquisitor. As I said, this is the next step up, and you will still be very gear reliant for a lot of your damage because you got so much traveling. Your tooltip should probably be lower than the Deadeye by quite a bit, but your effective damage in the end should be higher. Take this as kind of a guideline for a tree, make your own if you can make better, and I think this probably has some optimizing in it, so bear in mind those facts. And I'd say this is the second tier of Wonder. Last one, of course, being our Chaos sort of Wonder. I think I've already changed this to fit my elemental needs. Unfortunately, I have. But yeah, you've seen the previous videos, and I feel like this was the strongest version of the life-based Wonder builds that I could make. From memory, you don't grab that. I think I ended up grabbing some of this. Get this Fizz Chaos node. But in general, it's pretty much the same shit. You're just going to end up jamming and building differently. And this is probably the most effective, but also the most expensive by far. Because you end up needing a Crown of Eyes and a good spell power shield, a good wand with physical damage and spell power, so you can scale your Fizz, so you can scale your Chaos. And then ultimately you need the 6-link so you can get your Poison Gem involved as well. That's when this becomes the most powerful build, because it's pretty good for killing, well, bosses, thanks to the high amounts of Fizz and Chaos, and then the Poison. It's good for most map mods because it doesn't really get shut down by things in the red tier maps. It's good for generally Reflect. I could deal with Elemental Reflect very easily. I could deal with Physical Reflect pretty comfortably, but ultimately you would want Varl Pact as well if you want to deal with it 100% of the way. Yeah, and then of course, as you all know, wanders can become low life. I haven't really built a low life wander ever, but I think I had a general gist of it at some point. Also extremely expensive, and if you're going to do low life wander, you probably want to become an Inquisitor and scale Elemental, as that is, so this is just some other mock-up I made, but essentially the point of low life is you can stack more and more auras, and most of your auras are going to give you more elemental damage, and that means Inquisitor will shine in that point. So if you're going to build a low life wander, I would recommend Inquisitor. That's a much more comfortable tree, I would imagine, to build than for a life-based wander. That said, it would be the most expensive version of the wander because you need good ES gear, you need good damage gear, you need good resist gear. All of that combined onto certain pieces makes for a very expensive build. That's roughly all I'll say about wanding at this stage. This character hit level 89, got to about red maps, and this is the point at which I kind of want to respec to something different, like maybe a Voltaxic character, just so I can keep pushing ladder, do whatever maps are necessary. And I do have an example map, like I rolled this thing. It's a pretty amazing roll, and I want to do it, but in feeble elemental damage, you know, elemental reflect, becomes just kind of a hassle to run something like this, whereas Voltaxic won't give a shit about any map mod pretty much ever, and that's why I probably want to respect a Voltaxic at this point. But this character got me started in the league, and it can keep going if you really feel like it, but I feel like you need more gear scaling to actually progress your character beyond this point and want to keep playing it. If you're just happy to stick to sub-red maps, then, you know, you can pretty much play this self-found, and it's not very bad at all. I was running a Twizzle for a long time until I started crafting my own wand, and even a Twizzle will take you all the way you want. That's about all I'll say about this character and wanders in general. Hope you enjoyed the video and it didn't bore you too much. I'm a bit sick right now, so if that affected my voice and listening, I'm sorry. That's all I got for you. Thanks for watching today. See you guys next time.